Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from our respective homes in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is
Rye, the movie guy, and sitting alongside us is Phil Me and Phil.
Hello.
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we are talking romantic comedies, and not just that, recent romantic comedies.
Yeah, of the last 10 years, this is a good time, Ryan, to get romantic, snuggle up. Some people, maybe a possible guest who you're going to hear very soon, has actually said the romantic comedy is dead. There's none out there anymore. And I do agree to some level here that there aren't as many romantic comedies as there were in the heyday, the Julia Roberts heyday. I mean, the romantic comedies were like crazy. Now you got to sort of dig around for them. We'll get to this point. I don't know if I agree 100% because it's like the action films in the 80s. They're still action films. They've just changed quite a bit.
Well, we have two guests who are going to join us to discuss said topic.
Yes, Jack Lawrence Meyer and Ellie Reed are here. They have a new movie coming out called Big House. Can't wait to talk to those two.
Yep, we saw it. It's very fun. So is it a romantic comedy? What would you say, Matt? Where does that fit in?
It's a comedy. Mm-hmm. There's romance. There's a disastrous romance, but romance nonetheless.
Well, I'll talk to Jack and Ellie. I want to see where they fit in. I think it's a romantic comedy, modern romantic comedy. I think it fits in.
Sure.
Besides that, we have more going on, don't we, Phil?
Yes, it is the last week of August. It's only even a half week for the time that this is released. So we will be finishing Adam Driver month, but we got a new clip, we got a new fact, and we're going to close it out.
And we have two reviews this week, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the new Marvel film, as well as the new horror movie, Candyman.
Two big releases, Matt. Yeah, this is exciting.
Indeed.
Plus, we will be talking about Big House with Ellie and Jack. Before we get there, our Adam Driver fact.
Yes, you may not know this. I certainly didn't know this before this week. Adam Driver, he's worked with Noah Baumbach 4 different times. The first time was a very, very small role in Frances Ha, and that was in 2012. And then obviously 2014's While We're Young, 2017's The Meyerowitz Story with the other Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
And then just in 2019 for the big one for Marriage Story.
I like that collaboration right there.
I forgot he was in The Meyerowitz Stories. That is an underappreciated movie.
I got to watch that one again, but I hope they work together for years and years. One of those, Leo Scorsese type of collaborations.
They seem to work well together. Agreed.
They do. Speaking of working well together, our next two guests, Jack Lawrence Meyer, Ellie Reed, have a new film coming out entitled Big House. Jack, Ellie, welcome to Cinemajaw.
Hi there.
Thanks for having us.
So the Jawheads know, if you could say your name and your title on the film.
So I'm Jack Lawrence Meyer. I was the writer, director, and editor of the film.
And I'm Ellie Reed. I am a producer of the film, and I also play the role of Claire.
Welcome, guys. All right. If you had to give the elevator pitch of Big House, like the few sentence synopsis, Jack, what would you say?
Oh man, I love this game. I think So Big House is basically about two half sisters who take a weekend trip to their dad's old beach house. Now, this is the house where their dad used to hide his own love affairs. He's been divorced 3 times. They're half sisters.
And may I mention the nickname of the house? It was the Honey House.
The Honey House. That's right. Which a lot of folks tried to convince me to be the name of the film, and I put my foot down. But I would say it's a film in which the two sisters, or especially Claire, the star of the film, repeats her father's mistakes in the house where her father used to hide his affairs. And it's a single location film. It's kind of like a horror movie where something terrible happens 30 minutes in, and the rest of the film is just people running around and hiding from
it. That's interesting. It does have that sort of horrific element. I agree.
Now we were talking before you came on. Or do you consider Big House to be a romantic comedy? Ellie, is it a romantic comedy?
I think it is a comedy that deals with the subject of romance. But I think if we're talking strict rom-com, philosophy, I don't think it falls into that category. No.
Jack?
So in a recent episode of Ted Lasso, he talked about his rom-com philosophy. And that philosophy was that things always work out well in the end. True. I'm not going to spoil the ending of Big House, but I will say that it's pretty open to interpretation if that's a happy ending.
One thing that I love, well, two things, is the energy that this film has. You guys worked so well together, the cast. It felt like we were watching four people who really knew themselves, and then eventually a fifth person who really knew themselves in that house. So how'd you go about casting the film? Did you guys know each other prior, or was that just magic on screen?
Ellie and I have been working together. So Ellie and I have worked together for about 8 years. So we knew each other, like we're very tight. We've written scripts together. We're friends. But in casting Big House, I really had in mind that each of the characters, you've got the slightly bro-y fiance type. You've got the artsy emo kid. You've got the younger sister's kind of bratty. They all could have been like archetypes. And my main thought in casting was when I met people who had almost nothing in common with the characters I was writing. And I thought, oh, this will be a really weird combo. And that's hopefully what gave them their sense of like life, or what you're reacting to is that I cast against type all 6 roles. Like the lady who shows up for a threesome is not a wild and crazy lady, just to give a little spoiler.
Right.
Away.
I picked up on that, man.
I'm glad to hear that was big.
No. And I think that really worked. And I think also, I know Jack, and then the woman who plays my sister, Paige, and Albert, who plays my pseudo brother-in-law, who plays Art. We all knew each other from Chicago, and so it's especially fun to perform with people sort of playing against type when you know them really well, because you know what buttons you can push, you know what buttons you can't, it's fun to get a reaction out of these people that you know really well, but that you've never seen out of them before. So I think that was really fun and contributed to the energy for sure.
Without giving away one of the biggest laughs in the film, Ellie, your fiance's character in the film has a very delicate line to sort of balance here. He needs to be somewhat in the know, but also almost oblivious to something as well. Jack, talk about that comedy effort there of balancing that, because I thought that actor, I don't have his name in front of me, did an excellent job at it.
The younger one, String, the guy who played Michael Molina. Yeah.
Sure.
Man, so Michael's amazing because so I'll tell you this first off. The guy who played String and the actor who played Zach, Claire's fiance, Evan O'Brien, they're best friends in real life. And
wow.
I went to a baseball game once. I went to a Dodgers game, and I had the guy who plays String sitting on my right and the guy who plays Zach sitting on my left. And the whole night long, I realized they were just going to talk my ear off about their like super kind of like positive, like life is great. They're both very kind of like LA dudes in a way that I'm not. They're like these kind of chill, laid back LA dudes who think just life is wonderful. And I just was sitting there in the game thinking, I want to put these two against each other, like so badly. And so as far as that goes, I think really it was just a matter of like, and I'm trying not to give anything away, which is I'm kind of pausing here, but the String character is a character who all he wants is to be with the person he loves. That's all he wants in the world. And he's put in this position where not only does he have to lie to everyone else around him, he has to lie to himself to even be allowed to be at the party. And so as somebody who's gets a little anxious at parties, especially after a few hours. In a way, this whole film, and for me his whole character was just thinking about, all right, so how can we capture that panic attack of being stuck in a house that you have to get out of, you can't leave. And yeah, he's stuck between two. He's a little monster who wants two things. He wants to leave and he wants Claire. And how the hell is he going to get both?
I have a rather strange question. Hopefully you don't get asked a lot. It's sort of a technical question, but I was curious, because we watch a lot of indie films and we certainly know a lot of filmmakers, indie filmmakers. And so at the beginning of the movie, this is a beach house. It's in, somewhat of a warm tropical location, right? And right away, they can't escape to the beach because it's raining. So my question is, was that in the script, or did you start filming and it was raining and you went with it and adjusted on the fly? Because if so, that's kind of a fortunate turn of events.
100% the latter. It was not supposed to rain. It was supposed to be sunny. We shot this thing in Oceanside, California, 45 minutes north of San Diego. It rains like 7 days a year. And not only did it rain, it flooded. The entire town flooded during our shoot. I will say two things. One is that our sound team was loving it. They're like, we're going to bring a mic outside. We're going to point it at everything. We're going to point it at the ceiling. So they embraced it. So we leaned all the way in and we decided this is a film of being stuck in this house while it rains.
That kind of worked in your favor, right? It fits the story.
So absolutely.
How long of a shoot was it?
It was 2 days. It was a 2-day shoot. Yep.
Wow.
We made a feature film in 2 days. I can't believe anybody agreed to do it with me. The script was about 60 pages and I was kind of lying to myself, but also lying to my cast and crew that I thought it'd be a short film. And we get done shooting the thing. At the end of the second day, Michael Molina, the actor who plays String, took me aside and said, I think you just made a feature. And that's the first thing that gave me permission to cut it that way.
Awesome. I love that one scene in the bathroom where String and then your character, Ellie, goes into the bathroom to see String. Then you have to hide in the bathroom. Have you ever had one of those incidences in real life where you had to not be seen in a room that someone went into?
No. Oh my God. That scene was so easy to film because I would be terrified. I am not the kind of person who would do that. I would walk out immediately and be like, I'm here. Please stop whatever you're doing. I would not be able to handle the hiding. So I was just as uncomfortable, hopefully, as the viewer.
There's so much awesome. Like delicious awkwardness in this movie. It's great.
That's a lovely way to phrase it.
I was going to ask, I know, with the pandemic, have you been able to watch it with friends or a live audience? And what was the reaction to, some of the shocking comedy that takes place early on?
That's actually, unfortunately, one of the sad things that we haven't gotten to do yet. But because we did 8 film festivals, all of them virtual, all in the year of coronavirus, of course. And then we got this amazing VOD distribution deal from Gravitas. But the first time the movie is going to play in a theater is actually September 18th in Kansas City. We are going to be playing as a special guest of the Kansas City Underground Film Festival, and I'll get to finally be in an audience. But I haven't done an audience since test screenings. I mean, and by test screenings, I'm like while I was still editing it, early cuts. But that was, I don't know if Ellie can speak to this as well, but that was a blast the first time we saw this movie with people.
Yeah, I'm dying to see it with other people in the room. It's, we're surviving off text messages and emails of feedback, which is lovely. But because it's such a sort of claustrophobic and close movie, I want to feel the cringe in the audience. And I hope we get to do that soon.
Hope so too.
Yeah. Well, like I say, Jawheads, you got to check this one out. That cringe comes very early on. It draws you in right away. So it's one of those kind of movies, right? It's like, oh my God, where the hell is this going to go? So I had a blast with it. For the Jawheads that want to check out Big House, where can they see this movie?
Everywhere movies are sold. They can go to iTunes, Amazon, YouTube, Google Play, Vudu. I think it's on Comcast, AT&T, Spectrum On Demand, all those. We're hoping in December to roll out onto a streaming platform, but for now it's buy or rent anywhere you buy or rent movies. You can also get a Blu-ray, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to get a stack.
Sweet. So. Stocking stuffers, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've never owned a Blu-ray player because I'm that kind of millennial, but I'm going to have the objects.
And one more time, where's that screening? If some people are out in that area?
It's screening in Kansas City as part of the Kansas City Underground Film Festival, which I believe runs September 16th through 24th, but our film is on September 18th. We'll be doing I think it's a Friday night screening.
Nice. All right. Well, Jawheads, seek this one out. Me and Ryan both really enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. So Ellie and Jack have their pick for top 3 romantic comedies of the past 10 years. They're also, Matt, in honor of Candyman, which we're going to review later on in the show, they're going to take you on in Candy movie trivia. How's that sound? Candy movie trivia.
Sweet.
The
All
only
right. So
response.
That was a pun. Yeah. Thank you for picking up on that.
Yeah, love it. So we asked you guys if it was a romantic comedy, Big House. Doesn't fall necessarily in what we're considering romantic comedy, but that is our topic this week because a conversation we had with Jack on email was that the romantic comedy is dead. Do you really feel that way, Jack?
I really feel that way. I feel like, I feel like something about World War II killed the Western. We had the Western in the 30s and 40s, and then World War II made us cynical and sad, and we got the postmodern Western. And I feel like the same thing happened now. When Runaway Bride came out, and I think 1998, it was basically like a meta-fictional rom-com because everyone knew it was just a remake of Pretty Woman. And when you get to that point in the genre's history, when you start doing those meta callbacks, that's the end. So we're now in the post rom-com era. I'm not saying there's not great movies that are kind of rom-com, but they're all post-classical, post-modern, referential. I think the true rom-com died with the Clinton administration.
Wow.
Interesting.
I love it. Well, we're going to pick out some gems here for you, Jawheads. We're going to go round robin on our top 3. Ellie, you're kicking us off. What do you got sitting at number 3?
At number 3, okay. I'm already scared. I feel like Jack's going to hate everything I choose. So my number 3 pick is a movie called About Time. Have you guys seen it?
Oh, I love this movie. This is a great. I think
I've seen this.
So it's with Donald Gleason and Rachel McAdams, written and directed by Richard Curtis, who did Love Actually, Four Weddings and a Funeral. So he's a pretty, seasoned rom-com kind of guy. And it's about a guy, Donald Gleason, who, if he's a jawhead, I'm here. I'm ready to travel time with you because he's a time traveler. And
he listens. Yeah,
he listens for sure. It's about a guy who's a time traveler because Rachel McAdams only does movies where she's dating time travelers. If you guys want to look that up.
Well, that's true.
Not a lot of
the time traveler's wife also.
Yep. And Doctor Strange. And
this is true.
Yeah. And so basically when they're courting, he gets the chance to, do everything right by her. And but then also he sort of has to face the consequences as they build a life together of when he can go back in time and when he can't, and what sort of future consequences he has to live with and can't travel back in time to fix. And Bill Nye plays his dad, and I love him. And I think it's like a very genuine, sweet, romantic comedy. So
I'm right with you. I'm a big fan. Great movie, great pick to kick off the top 3. Jack, can you follow that up? This is tough.
Ooh. So for number 3, I'm going to go with it's a 2014 American romantic comedy, Obvious Child, directed by Gillian Robespierre, starring Jenny Slate.
Wow, another good pick. These are deep. I like this one also, Jack.
I love that movie.
I just have to say that for my postmodern or my post-classical romance theme, I feel like a rom-com whose climax is on by Valentine's Day, but at an abortion clinic, but it's not a bad thing, is just a great combo.
You guys are both picking ones I haven't seen. I want to check these out. You want me to go next?
Yeah, why don't you bring down the show with your number 3?
I'm going to bring it down a notch here. You know, Jack said that the rom-com is dead, so I'm picking a zombie movie at my number 3. I'm going with one of the most unusual and creative zombie movies of the past 10 years, 2013's Warm Bodies. Did you guys see this?
No.
This was an honorable mention of mine, Matt.
Really? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so
I'm
not
like
totally.
Well. I approve.
It's kind of like a zombie Romeo and Juliet. There's a zombie who, for some reason that's not important, has some sort of latent feelings and emotions, and he finds this love interest, and their relationship becomes central to saving the world. And it's actually surprisingly sweet, while it's also wrapped in a pretty gory, nasty zombie movie that has some cool action and horror elements. It is pretty good. Worth checking out.
Yeah.
I like that pick. I like it.
Right.
My
I'm
number
glad it meets your approval, dude.
There you go. My number 3 came out 2018. This was a smash at the box office. So I think probably everybody's seen it. Maybe not, Matt. But I went with Crazy Rich Asians as my number 3 pick.
Yeah.
And this was the movie that, at least for me anyways, really introduced me to Awkwafina. And I just loved her character in here. It was absolutely hysterical. But we have Rachel, who is dating Nick, and she is invited to the Philippines, or no, it's actually Singapore that she goes to for a friend's wedding. And that is when she realizes that Nick is actually part of one of the wealthiest families in the country. And he was a very eligible bachelor. And of course, all of this brings a bunch of confusion, complications. But as Jack pointed out, with the romantic comedies, it always has to end in a happy place. And Crazy Rich Asians does that. It's a crowd pleaser of a pick. If you haven't seen it,
it's like a modern day Cinderella, right? I mean, basically.
Maybe to some degree.
It's also like a blockbuster rom-com. It's an expensive rom-com.
I was going to say it's like a musical with no musical numbers is what it looked like to me. Like it was just gorgeous spectacle the whole way through. Yeah.
It's very vibrant. Yeah.
Yes.
Into our 2s, Ellie.
Okay. My number 2 rom-com, I believe, continues to prove that it is not dead, Jack. And that is 2017's The Big Sick.
Oh, yes.
Nice pick. Nice pick.
Which I have seen tons of times. I love it. Set in Chicago, which is great. Kumail Nanjiani, Zoe Kazan. It's based on the real story of how Kumail met his wife. It's directed by Michael Showalter, who I think has such a handle on comedy and emotion and, just such a light touch. Yeah, it's about cultures clashing. It's about love in the face of illness. It's about, growing up and getting along and not getting along with your parents. And I really loved it. It makes me laugh out loud. And I think everyone in it is brilliant.
It was a crossover hit too, because it was really big with the NPR crowd at first, right? And then it blew up into it crossed into the mainstream, I would say. Yeah. It's definitely good pick.
Thank you.
Jack, I mean, in this number 2 hole, you got to follow up Ellie's great picks here. Can you do it again?
I'm going to be cards on the table here. She stole my number 2 pick, so I'm going to go, but I've got a back burner bullpen here, so I'm going to go to my bullpen.
Okay.
Because I just have to say, The Big Sick, also a movie about navigating death and like parents-in-law after like the second date, postmodern rom-com, perfect example. So I'm going to dig in and I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with my most obnoxious pick at all, but I believe it with my whole heart, Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah.
Good pick. I wasn't even thinking of a Wes Anderson. Oh, well done, Jack.
Oh, well, Moonrise Kingdom, the story of a young boy who meets a young lady and they fall in love and they run off to the woods to have Francois Truffaut style French New Wave adventures while escaping an incredible ensemble cast of Frances McDormand and Bill Murray and Jason Schwartzman. Just incredible. Ed Norton, Tilda Swinton, Bruce Willis, great film. The only thing it lacks that I feel like every good rom-com needs is like the best friend character. You know, that neither one of these children were totally alone when they decided to abscond to the woods and become like little miniature Bonnie and Clydes. So, but great film.
There's a scene there. I just saw, I forget, I was flipping channels where they're in the tent together and Bill Murray just sort of lifts up the tent and they're on the beach together and he's in his underwear. It's just such a cute moment. I love that movie.
The moment when they dance on the beach is just what does it for me every time.
Good stuff. Matt, what do you got there?
All right. As I'm thinking about it, this sort of supports Jack's theory of a post rom-com era, because this one has a bit, it's certainly a strong dramatic undercurrent, but it is a comedy, and it's Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. Another one that's just kind of
tearjerker, Matt.
Great film.
Would you say rom-com though? I mean, it's definitely romantic. It's about like, first loves, and yeah, it's definitely a bit of a tearjerker as well. But I think it ends in a satisfying place, if not exactly a happy ending. It makes us, it satisfies. It sort of, comes completely around. It's a sad movie, but like the kids in it are so sweet. Jack, it has that best friend character. Molly Shannon is amazing in the movie. And it was unusual. It was original. It was something we hadn't exactly seen before, but I felt the romance as well.
Do you think that a movie can be a rom-com and a coming of age story at the same time? Are those overlapping categories?
I have a very good honorable mention that we'll talk about if it doesn't come up. That is exactly that. So
yeah, I don't know what Rise honorable is, but I would say absolutely it can be. Sure.
Yeah, I would too.
But yeah, totally. My number 2 pick, not a coming of age story. In fact, this is a romantic comedy for actually a more adult crowd. It stars, believe it or not, James Gandolfini.
Oh, yeah.
And then you shoehorn in Julia Louis-Dreyfus in 2013's Enough Said. And what a sweet movie this is. Julia Louis-Dreyfus plays a character who is about to be an empty nester. Her daughter is going away to college, and she's trying to date. And she finds this man played by James Gandolfini that she starts to fall for. And at the same time, she's a masseuse. She's out there giving massages to a character played by Catherine Keener. And I'm convinced anything Catherine Keener in is gold. So she's the best, right? So yeah, it turns really funny when it ends up that Catherine Keener ex-husband is James Gandolfini, and she's been saying nothing but bad things about him, and the comedy ensues. But in the end, it's a movie that moves you a little bit too. Enough Said. I'm a big fan of this one. Have you guys seen it?
Yes, it's brilliant. I love it. Oh man, the two of them are so good together. The chemistry is
just perfect casting.
Yeah.
Was it not Gandolfini's final performance? Did you mention that?
It was.
I believe it was. Yeah. I don't know what else he did right around then. Can we throw it in the fish tank, Phil? What his last 2-3 roles were? All right, into our number ones. Ellie, what do we got sitting there?
Okay, I've got a film from last year. That's right, as recent as 2020.
Wow.
And I guess if Jack's argument is that the rom-com still exists, but it needs to have some sort of twist or gimmick or self-referential something or other, this falls into it. But my pick is Palm Springs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Great pick.
Which I truly, truly loved. Andy Samberg, Kristen Milioti. It's a Groundhog Day situation that they're both thrown into, and they, or at least one of them is trying to get out of it, but they sort of fall in love over and over again, reliving the same day together. And man, I really loved it. I thought this movie was despite the fact that I just referenced Groundhog Day, I felt like this was a pretty original movie. And, the two of them were so great together. And I don't know, it's one I've seen multiple times since it came out last year. So I feel like I had to pick it for my number one.
I think it made both our top 10 lists last year, right, Matt? It was
absolutely.
up there for us.
Yeah, it was. It's a great movie. It is original, even though like the conceit, the whole time loop thing, we'd seen it before. They get past that so quickly that what happens afterward gave it room for this originality and this romance on top of that.
I also have like a small brag that I was invited to a test screening of it and I had no idea what it was about. And so I really, truly got to experience that twist, that moment where I was like, oh, he's reliving the same day over and over again, which I walked out of the screening thinking, I don't know how many other people are going to get that moment because they're going to have to market it somehow. You're going to have to see a trailer. And I feel really lucky to have gotten that experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jack, what do you got sitting there?
Well, I do have to say that Ellie and we must be creative soulmates because 2/3 of our lists were the same. My number one was
my
Springs.
honorable mention. So that makes me really happy.
I made a backbench though, so I could keep participating. So this might not be my number one. It's more like my number 5, but I'm going to pick, you know, what actually is like, I feel like the great anti-rom-com becomes rom-com, which is The Lobster.
Yeah. I like this pick.
I like it a lot too. We just talked about this recently. I love this film.
Yes, this is a film about, it kind of starts at this kind of retreat in the woods where it turns out society sends single people to get them back together with back coupled so they can be productive members of a society. We never really get a full explanation of this dystopian world we live in. We just get this one weird European house in the woods where everyone is forced to kind of mingle and date in like a hellish real life version of if OkCupid was just a place. And it becomes a movie about a guerrilla war against the very notion of monogamous heterosexual relationships. It's great.
He's become, Yorgos Lanthimos is probably one of the most exciting filmmakers today, right? Like if his name is out there, it's like, oh, I got to see this.
Yes.
It's so aggressive at times, you know?
I just saw his very first film, Dogtooth. I'm not actually 100% sure about that. And it is worth checking out if you've never seen his early stuff.
We famously did a very early review of that here where Ryan clocks me over the head with the VCR in the
video. Just like in the movie, right? Yeah. Clock him in the head with the VCR.
You'll throw that in the fish tank, though. I'm pretty sure it was his first film, but did he have one before that? Yorgos Lanthimos. All right, that swings it around to my number 1. In all honesty, it was The Big Sick. But if I'm calling an audible, I would sub in, and this is maybe a little controversial because it's from 2010, but it was from August of 2010. So we don't know. It could have been. It's like
right
almost.
Now we're in 2022, or do you think we're in?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Right. Well, anyway, I'm going with it. It's Scott Pilgrim versus the World. All right.
Great movie.
We're going to allow this one, I think. Another one where I think just the originality of it gets it like flying colors, like literally there were flying colors in this movie. The whole comic book world that they bring to life on the screen could have failed so spectacularly, like the pow bam biff thing that the old Batman TV show did. But somehow they pulled it together. They yanked something off the page and onto the screen in a way we hadn't seen before. And it's brilliant. Honestly, even without all the pizzazz, the story of Scott Pilgrim was just so much fun that it worked. So
I mean, the cast
that's my sub.
Also unreal. We got 2 Avengers in there. You know, it's outrageous. I feel like you can't go wrong with all the actors that are in that movie. It's absolutely amazing.
And Edgar Wright is a genius.
Yeah.
So
it was one I saw in the theater, and then I went years without seeing. Jawheads, if you haven't seen it in a long time, it's so great now. I think catching up with it like a second or third time, really appreciated it. It has aged beautifully.
Agree.
My number 1 did not come up. We go all the way back 10 years ago, 2011. This is a very traditional romantic comedy, I think. Great cast here. Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, Steve Carell, Julianne Moore. How didn't this come up already? Crazy Stupid Love, my number one pick.
Guys, that was on my list too, and I kept thinking, oh well, someone's gonna pick it, and so I tried to go a little outside the box, but that's the best movie.
It is. When I wrote down a bunch and I said, well, this is the best. I mean, I hands down, if I'm talking romantic comedy, this is probably the last great one, I think. Very traditional. For those who haven't seen it, Steve Carell has gone through a divorce and he's out there trying to date at a time when he doesn't know even what to do anymore. And he bumps into the cool man played by Ryan Gosling, who's going to show him all the moves, you know, and by doing this, he gets to know what kind of character Ryan Gosling is, which he thinks is cool at the time. But he comes to find out that his daughter, played by Emma Stone, is dating some guy that she's all crazy about. And the big laugh comes in here when he finds out that it's actually Ryan Gosling's character, who he's gotten to know is this suave playboy. And I mean, there's a great Dirty Dancing moment between Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. There's so many great moments in this film. Highly recommend Crazy Stupid Love if you haven't seen it. It's, I think, the best that's come around in a long time.
Well, Jack, after the list, do you still think dead or
I'll
changed?
say this. Only Crazy Stupid Love is just a straight up rom-com, like in that like late 80s, midnight, like no twist, no genre mix, no dark side. Just so the fact that we can only find one amongst our 12 picks, I'm going to say validates me.
Well, you could make a case for Crazy Rich Asians as well, but
maybe I think that one. Yeah, that one is just too big and spectacular. You
true.
could make a list for the time traveler one, kind of actually. That might be the closest, the Rachel McAdams one.
But
it's got a gimmick. But as far as like that genre, yeah, I think our list kind of proves it's dead.
Yeah.
Honorable mention that I was talking about of coming of age that I didn't want to mention was Love, Simon.
I loved that movie.
Yes, Love, Simon, where he is in search of another classmate who is sending him these notes. And at the same time, he is a kid who has not been able to come out to his parents as being gay. And both things sort of happen at the same time. This is the kind of movie you just want to put your arms around and hug. It's a wonderful film. Love, Simon.
Oh, that's such a good addition. Yes, that movie was wonderful. But I see everything. It's more of a coming of age story, but there is romance. Yeah.
Everything else I had on my honorables you guys have mentioned. Good job, guys. Good job.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. All my honorables were mentioned as well. So
I have one that wasn't mentioned that is more traditional. Trainwreck, which I really liked. I don't know if everybody else liked it. I know, sometimes the Judd Apatow universe isn't always for everyone, but put Bill Hader in anything and I will watch it, and put him playing basketball with LeBron James and I will watch it many times.
And LeBron James was actually good in it.
He was.
Mm-hmm. I would even say, speaking of Apatow, this is 40. You could make a case for that being a good romantic comedy the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Matt, it's not a romantic comedy, but Marvel has a new film out.
That's right, Ryan. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is the latest from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Having never read the comics myself, I went in completely in the dark with only moderate expectations. Can Marvel successfully dip a toe into the kung fu genre via the superhero genre, or is this just far too much genre to hit with a whirling Shang-Bao? I cracked my knuckles to find out.
I gave you 10 years to live your life. Now you see me rise. And where did that get you? You walked in my shadow. I trained you. So the most dangerous people in the world couldn't kill you. Son, it's time for you to take your place by my side. You better watch out, 'cause it's my time.
Sean, played by Simu Liu, lives a humdrum life as a hotel valet and hangs out with his platonic buddy, Katie, played by Awkwafina. After a rather terrific attack on a bus, we learn that Sean is actually Shang-Chi, the son of a legendary and ruthless man, Wen Wu, who is the head of a secretive organization known as the Ten Rings Gang. Some of you may be more familiar with this character as the Mandarin. We'll get to that. Shang-Chi also possesses all the skills of a highly trained assassin, the life he fled to San Francisco to escape. After the attack and a mysterious message from his estranged sister, Shang and Katie travel back to his birth home to discover what the Ten Rings are up to, if his sister is safe, what really happened to his mother, and if her tall tales of a magical village have anything to do with it all. Ryan, this is a classic Marvel superhero origin story. We actually haven't seen a film like this in a while, since Marvel wisely stopped rehashing origins for characters we already know. Shang-Chi, however, is a less well-known character, and the familiar tropes were actually quite welcome here, shedding light in an easy-to-follow and digest way. I thought it was fun. I have to nod my head to the action. If you're a fan of action and martial arts in particular, then you're in for a real treat. There are fewer laser beams from eyes and more hand-to-hand fisticuffs here. Don't get me wrong, as the film progresses, we do see the stakes progress as well till the final battle, where there are fantastic monsters, beasts, weapons, and the typical Marvel light show. But it all worked for me visually. The acting was also very good. Awkwafina was her usual charismatic self. And once again, even though she may be a bit of a Jar Jar here, I couldn't help loving her character. She gets a pretty decent arc too. Simu Liu is a slightly different story. This was a hard sell for me. I'm not quite sure he nailed it, but I will say he was good enough to intrigue me into seeing how his second outing as Shang-Chi fares. My main complaint, Ryan, is the silly first act. At the final scene of the first act in the underground fight club, I found myself thinking of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie, and how it was much better. Fortunately, the second act swings darker and the third act cleans it up. And by the time it got to the finish line, after a shaky start, I thought that it did it quite well. Obviously, I'm not qualified to get into the discussion of representation, but that's a question that's lingering for me. Does this film hit the tone and authenticity that inspires a community as Black Panther did? I'm curious to see if that will be the case, and I hope it will. From where I was sitting, it looks as though Marvel Studios took the care to be culturally sensitive and let Asian filmmakers and actors tell an Asian story. In particular, how they dealt with the embarrassingly outdated named character, the Mandarin. That moniker was sort of embarrassing, and I think it was well handled here, Ryan. Actually, one of the better surprises in the film. Bottom line, this was a fun and somewhat refreshing superhero origin movie, unencumbered by the larger lore of the MCU for the most part. A great jumping on point for new fans and a perfect hint at things to come for we veterans. Go see it.
Wow. So you're recommending, I mean, a big shock here. You're recommending a Marvel movie.
Right? Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it?
I did not get a chance to see this press screening. And I had mentioned that, to be honest, I've done pretty well here, Matt, and I've seen all the Marvel films for quite some time. I did mention this one just doesn't seem to be doing anything for me. Like, I may wait until it comes to like Disney Plus. I'll sometimes see it, but I myself don't know if I'll actually go out to the theater to check this one out. As a non-Marvel fan that you know that I am, is that about right? Or do you think I should go see it on the big screen?
Well, here's the thing. I have a feeling that even Disney wasn't 100% sure where this movie would land, because if they were sure they had a hit on their hands, this would have been handled a whole lot differently. It's a character that nobody's really familiar with outside of some hardcore comic book fans. And even me, who have read a ton of the Marvel comics, just never got into the character Shang-Chi very much. So yeah, they didn't market it like it was a huge hit. If you were jumping on as a new fan, I think this would be a great place to do it. As somebody who sees all the Marvel movies, this is probably one. It wasn't bad, but I don't know how it's going to like it's not an important building block in the larger MCU. Like if you don't see this one, you won't be like, well, what's this all about? Other than the characters themselves, you're not missing anything major here. Was there a post-credit scene? There was.
Oh, okay. That's good.
There always is.
And then this may sound completely goofy because I don't know my Marvel history so well, but when you're talking about the Mandarin, he did show up in one of the Iron Man movies, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I got to dance around this because it's one of the best surprises in the movie. So okay. I don't necessarily want to reveal exactly how that's dealt with. But
okay. They are the same character. At least the idea of it is the same.
And they state that in Iron Man. That's Iron Man 3, I believe, where it's Ben Kingsley playing the Mandarin. Some people call me a terrorist.
I think it's Iron Man 2.
No, Iron Man 2 is Whiplash. Yeah.
Okay.
So all I want to say is that problem is resolved. And,
interesting.
And they also directly talk about how the name the Mandarin is like kind of a laughable, stupid name that white writers from the 60s chose for this character. So that's dealt with very directly, and it's satisfying how it all plays out.
All right, let's give this one the tier test. We sometimes say top tier, middle tier, bottom tier. As far as Marvel movies go, where does this fit in?
If I'm being honest with you, I would say that this is like either the bottom of the middle tier or the top of the bottom tier. This was by no means a bad movie. It's no Thor 2. It's no, what's another really crappy Marvel movie?
You're asking the wrong guy. I think there's a few bad ones, but Iron Man 2 was really bad.
Yeah, Iron Man 2. So this is better than both of those. I'd put it like probably around where the Ant-Man 2 lands, you know? And I really enjoyed Ant-Man 2. So this was fun. It was good. It's just not like, holy crap, like I didn't geek out fanboy, style on it. But I liked it a lot.
Was there a jaw-dropping moment in there?
Yeah, that is the jaw-dropping moment is the surprise guest they meet via the character, the Mandarin. That's all I can say.
How about a movie poster quote for us?
Shang-Chi is a roundhouse kick of an origin story.
How many jaws?
I'm giving this one 2.5 jaws.
It's
a solid. This is a good movie. If you live in a place where it's safe to go to the theaters, it would be a great movie to go see in the theaters. The fantastical monsters at the end of this movie are really fun to watch on the big screen. And we do get that Marvel light show. The action was fun. Definitely worth checking out.
I just like that Matt's matured enough where he can actually give a Marvel film 2.5 jaws and not feel terrible about it. Back in the day, Matt was throwing out 4 jaws for everything. It was a Marvel movie. It's 4 jaws. You'd be yelling.
Well, I mean, I love the early Marvel stuff, but I didn't give like Thor 2 4 jaws. Come on.
I don't know. We'd have to go back, but who knows? Who knows what Matt gave? All right, Jawheads, when you see this film, and if you agree, you disagree with Matt, please write us feedback@cinemajaw.com, or if you have Twitter pulled up, you can shoot us a tweet. We are @Cinemajaw. What we are going to do is take a break, and when we come back, we have a review of Candyman out in theaters now. Plus, Ellie and Jack will be back to take Matt on in Candy Movie Trivia. Stick with us. Continuing our celebration of Adam Driver, here is Kylo Ren going undercover as Matt on the hilarious SNL skit from 2016.
We've put hidden cameras in an employee common area, and no one has any idea that Matt is their boss, Kylo Ren.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a radar technician. You guys like working here?
Work is work.
Yeah, totally. What do you guys think of Kylo Ren? Do you guys believe when he says that he's gonna finish what Darth Vader started?
What exactly has he started? I will say this for Kylo. I think he gets a bad rap.
What?
Yeah. He's trying to accomplish something that's never been done in the history of the galaxy.
Ridiculous.
Rule everything? That's impressive. I admire the guy.
Yes, exactly. Have you guys seen Kylo Ren's lightsaber?
Yeah, man, that thing's weird looking.
No, it's not. It's awesome. Here, let me go see if I can find it. I'll show it to you. Look, I found Kylo Ren's lightsaber. Look at it up close.
Jawheads, I want you to do me a favor. Pull your phone out of your pocket and go to your YouTube app. Search for the Cinemajaw channel and hit subscribe. Really, please do it right now. This will do two things. One, it helps us reach more people. We want to spread the good word about film, and you clicking subscribe really helps us do that. And two, it costs you nothing. That's right. Subscribing to Cinemajaw on YouTube is fun and it's free. Think of it as a donation that doesn't even cost you anything. Even if you just listen to the podcast and never really watch the videos, you subscribing on YouTube helps us make the podcast better too. But please check out a few videos while you're there. We think they're pretty good. So right now, while you're listening, before you forget, take your phone out. It shouldn't even interrupt the show. And go to YouTube, search Cinemajaw, and hit subscribe. And thank you so much.
And we are back on Cinemajaw. Before Jack and Ellie come back on the Jaw to take you on in trivia, Matt, and before we get to talking Candyman, we did throw a few items into the fish tank. And I know Phil wants to always pop his head up and say hi. So let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Thank you guys so much for letting me out. It's a pretty short box this week, so we'll be able to breeze through these really fast. Our first one, what other than Enough Said was James Gandolfini doing towards the end of his career? So just before that film, the incredible Burt Wonderstone with Steve Carell had come out.
Oh boy, what a clunker.
Also in 2013. And then Enough Said was actually a posthumous release. And it was like right in that very, very close time frame. And then there was one other posthumous release called The Drop. It was actually received pretty well. It had Noomi Rapace and Tom Hardy in it.
I have seen The Drop. I actually read it was based on like a novella, which I read as well. So I read the book and I've seen the movie. I do recommend The Drop if you can find it out there, Jawheads.
Did we not didn't we review that, right? On Cinemajaw?
I might have, but I'm not even positive. Yeah.
On like episode 4 or something. This is a 2014 film.
Yeah, would have been a while back.
Yeah.
Then this one's actually really interesting to me. I thought, did Yorgos Lanthimos have a movie before Dogtooth? He directed 2. Now, typically, at least for me, the Yorgos Lanthimos I think of, he's kind of an auteur, writer, director, producer, and his first like trifecta was on Dogtooth. But he had 2 films back in Greece, his home. In 2001, he had directed a film called My Best Friend, and that was his first feature-length film, but he did not write it, he did not produce it. He did write 2005's Kaneta, also direct it, but did not produce it. And those 2 were both before, but they were also, unlike Dogtooth, pretty like not released outside of Greece as well. From what I could tell, Kaneta was very well received internationally from the people who had seen it, but the one that like was kind of his breakthrough, at least internationally, was Dogtooth. And then obviously he became a global phenomenon, and he's able to make films in the UK like The Favourite and work with A24.
He's huge everywhere now. Yeah.
Jeez, we love him here on Cinemajaw.
I know.
Good stuff. Was that everything, Phil?
That's all we got in here.
Jump back in that fish tank.
Oh, you know it.
29 years ago. Oh, makes me feel old saying that, Matt. 29 years ago, the original Candyman hit the theaters. The year was 1992, and while it made a modest $25 million at the box office, it became a massive cult classic. Many movie fans started naming it their favorite horror film of the 1990s, and I'm one of them. I love it. It was a film that was scary, but also took a look at the racial divide in the city of Chicago. So who better than Jordan Peele to update the film for the 2020s? Jordan Peele did not direct the new feature, but he is a producer on it and also one of the screenwriters. Nia DeCosta, whose first feature is A Little Woods, is the one who directed the new Candyman. Would the new version hook us all like the first one did? I went to the theater to find out.
I feel really connected to this story.
Go on.
Right here in this neighborhood, the legend started. And the legend is, if we say his name 5 times while looking in the mirror, we could summon him.
Summon the Candyman. Hell no.
Candyman.
Anthony, no.
Candyman.
Stop.
I don't want to get creeped out in my new apartment before bed.
Candyman.
Black people don't need to be summoning.
I dare you.
Don't say that.
Say his name.
Candyman.
You better not do that last one.
Candyman. You want to be a part of the story, right?
No.
Say his name. Candyman.
Matt, I ended up watching the original 1992 film in preparation for this, and I'm glad I did. However, if you have not seen or can't remember it too well, no issue. Nia DeCosta recaps the events of the first film to get you up to speed. The legend of Candyman has grown in some circles, but in others, it's a name people have not heard of. That is partly because the area Candyman used to terrorize, Chicago's Cabrini Green neighborhood, and in particular, the housing projects located there, have now been torn down. Then the neighborhood has been gentrified, filled now with expensive high-rises, gyms, and a Whole Foods. This is where visual artist Anthony McCoy and his girlfriend currently live. Once Anthony hears of the Candyman legend, he starts to research more on the topic. While walking through the old grounds of the housing projects, Anthony is stung by a bee. His arm slowly becomes grotesque. He also at this time starts to incorporate Candyman into his artwork. This prompts people to test the myth. Say his name 5 times while looking into a mirror. From here, the scares begin, and so does the social commentary. Let me tackle the two separately. As for the horror, I did not find this one nearly as scary as the original. DeCosta relies on reflections and off-screen violence in hopes that our imagination will conjure up something far scarier. Your mileage may vary. The social commentary, that of gentrification and of white critics critiquing Black artists, is brought up, but the message and or the discussion path DeCosta was trying to give us was a little bit murky. The final message of the film, that of police brutality and violence, hits home the most and received a loud cheer from the screening I was in. I do need to mention the cinematography and sound design are both excellent. I enjoyed Candyman and I am recommending, but for those who have hyped up this movie for the past 2 years and wanted it to be the next Get Out, they might be a little disappointed. That's my review. Tell everyone.
So this doesn't recapture that cult classic magic of the first, huh?
No, I don't think it quite does. It was funny that I was able to go back and watch the first one and realize that the power of why it had such a lasting power, like it had the staying power, I should say. Does this one? I don't think it would, but now we're talking about movies that are made to have sequels and become franchises. It's completely different. When the original Candyman came out, even though it does end in a sense, if you've seen it, it does end in a way that is open to sequels. That just wasn't
a horror thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But it just wasn't the absolute mainstay back in 1992. Like that was the idea of everybody who put money behind it necessarily, where it is nowadays for sure. Right. So it ends a little bit different, where I don't think this would be such a cult classic as much as it would be a film that's trying to start, its own little franchise, and hopefully, a couple of sequels to follow.
So Jordan Peele, we Get Out and then Us. And since then, has he been just putting his name on things to kind of market them a little bit?
Well, you got the Twilight Zone he was doing for Paramount Plus, right? And I mean, I think there was talk originally of him possibly directing a new Candyman version, but his production company ended up producing it, and he is, like I said, a screenwriter on it. Not the only screenwriter, so there's 3 screenwriters credited. He's one of them. So his influence is there for sure. And I think having his name attached has obviously elevated this project immensely.
Yeah. How was the acting overall?
Solid. And so the look of the film is wonderful. It's much better and more artistic than the original Candyman. But when it comes to the scares, he's got this hook. It's a very gruesome tool.
Sure.
And in the first one, it's really grotesque kills, and it's like shocking almost in a way. None of that this time around. There were
get a hook through an eye or anything.
No, you get some decent slashes here and there. But again, a lot of the scares that I think DeCosta is trying to come up with is those moments where a character is looking in a mirror and they don't see it, but we can see the reflection of the Candyman behind that said person.
Ooh, that gives me the willies. And
that does work. Like I say, it does work. There were already saw the Candyman on screen for about, maybe a half a second or a second before most of the audience, or at least a good chunk of the audience, reacted. Because it's just one of those, like, if you weren't quite looking in the right spot, you might not have seen him, but eventually everybody got there. And then all of a sudden, almost like a delayed reaction, a second later, somebody's like, oh my God, in the theater, because this lady was startled. So again, your mileage will vary on those kind of scares. So it worked for the most part. I enjoyed the movie, but I don't think it'll be a horror classic the way the first one was.
Is there a jaw-dropping moment, Rye?
For me, I really liked the first time a character tried the old Candyman mirror trick. And that is after hours at the art gallery. They have a art display about the Candyman, and they talk about this myth of saying his name 5 times into the mirror. Now the party's over. Everybody's gone. When it's dark, the lights are out, and someone decides, let's just try it. And I love that the characters on like the 3rd or 4th try start to actually get scared. Like, oh, it's all a joke. They'll say Candyman, Candyman, Candyman. And then as they get near completing it, they're like, should we do this? Everybody's hesitant. I like that. And I like that entire scene in the art gallery. It was a good one.
Nice. You got a movie poster quote?
I went with, this movie is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that makes sense. How many jaws you giving this one, Rye?
3 jaws for Candyman.
All right.
Do see it. I do recommend checking out Candyman. First one, the one that came out in 1992, perhaps a lot of people's favorite horror film of the 1990s. I know I've talked to a lot of people who would say that's tops, and it's definitely in my probably top 5 of the 1990s. But you know what? Before we play trivia, let's bring on Ellie and Jack back on from Big House. And I wanted to ask you guys what your favorite horror film of the 1990s is. Ellie?
Scream, hands down. I love Scream. I love the Scream franchise. Give me horror and comedy together. Give me camp. Give me all of it. I love it. I'll watch Scream movies until they stop putting them out. I love them so much.
I love Matthew Lillard. Anything that guy is in, he's amazing.
Can I give some special love to Scream 3 with Jay and Silent Bob cameos? That was a great mix of Kevin Smith and horror.
And Scream 4 with the great false starts over and over and over again, making fun of itself. I love that too.
Anytime a movie gets a major parody, you know that they've tapped into the zeitgeist. Yes. So yeah, for sure.
Jack?
I'm going to go, so I'll say that horror films generally scare me too much, straight up. So the ones I like are the ones like Scream, or I'm going to throw out something a little bit more like international art film here. Cronos, Guillermo del Toro's first film, 1993. He was still working in Mexico at the time. It's his take on the vampire story. A man trying to build an immortal heart. and it turning him into a vampire.
This I have not seen. It's written down in my journal as a must see, and I have not seen it yet.
I'm ashamed to admit I haven't seen it yet either.
I'm not.
If you like the practical effects of Guillermo del Toro's later stuff, Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy, you're gonna love this film.
Matt,
can
I go next and leave you last? Because you probably got
You know what, Ryan? Sure. Why don't you go next, buddy?
So I was going to be traditional and go The Silence of the Lambs.
That's sort of the
far one of my
pick.
favorites, but it's too obvious. So if I was going to say a movie that really scared me, going back to the 90s, saw this one in the theater, it's The Blair Witch Project. That was probably the movie that scared me the most as far as going into the theater and really being terrified. The Blair Witch Project would be my pick. And it has had a few sequels, none of them nearly as scary.
No.
We've talked about The Blair Witch numerous times, the marketing behind it. I don't know what we were thinking, but we actually believed that it was a real movie. It was a crazy time. It was just before the internet would ruin everything like this. But The Blair Witch Project was my scariest movie I saw in the 90s, man.
Yeah. It was almost more of an event, like something that happened, because you go back and you watch the movie, the magic is gone. You had to see that in the theater during the campaign, the marketing campaign, for it to work. And boy, did it. I love that pick, Rye. I mean, 90s horror is my exact wheelhouse. I have a few. All right. Silence of the Lambs.
I knew this was coming.
It's so obvious. I've mentioned The Cube before.
I love The Cube.
The Cube is an amazing movie. And Ellie, you said you like comedy.
I love how much Ellie loves The Cube. I mean, she was really enthusiastic there.
See, people who have seen The Cube love The Cube. The Cube is an amazing movie. I can't speak for the sequels. They're not so good, but the original one was so interesting. And it's that whole escape room thing before there were escape rooms. It's great. I'm also a big fan of The Devil's Advocate, with Keanu.
Oh, boy. All right.
What, you're poo-pooing The Devil's Advocates?
Yeah, I mean, you had us at The Cube, but okay.
I'm gonna bring it home strong with Peter Jackson. One of my favorite films of his. It's like hilarious splatter horror, Dead Alive, also known as Brain Dead elsewhere other than the States. But it's just hyper gore to the point where it's just hilarious, over the top zombie, where there's like pieces of head sliding around on a blood-soaked floor like hockey pucks, but it's funny. It's actually hilarious. One of my favorite movies of all time. There you go. I could go on if you want.
Well, I was thinking maybe this October, Matt, of doing 3 episodes in a row where we tackle our top 5 horror films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Oh, that is a brilliant idea.
We'll talk more. We'll talk more after we get done recording.
Okay.
All right. In honor of Candyman, which I gave a pretty good review of, we are playing Candy movie trivia. Ellie, Jack, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first. Let Matt K go first. There are steals, and if you guys get hung up on any questions, you get 1 Rescue Me Ryan. I have clues to all the questions. And I give you a hint here. They start off easy.
All right, let's start.
All right.
We'll go first.
Question number 1 in Candy movie trivia. Eminem, not the candy, but the rapper, starred in this 2002 movie loosely based on his life.
8 Mile.
I think we got that.
That is correct. They start off easy, 1-0. Question 2 over to Matt K. Matt, in the movie E.T., what kind of candy did Elliot use to get E.T. to come out of the shed?
Reese's Pieces.
That is correct. The easy ones.
Shameless corporate shilling right there from Spielberg.
Even though famously it was supposed to be
huge.
M&M's.
Really?
Right?
They couldn't get the license or something?
That is correct. Yep.
Interesting.
Question 3, back over to Ellie and Jack. Here we go. What kind of candy bar did Chunk give Sloth in the 1985 film The Goonies?
What?
Ellie, I've never seen The Goonies.
No.
You've never seen The Goonies, dude?
It's a massive blind spot. I know how big it is.
I definitely have, but oh no.
Oh boy.
Oh, no.
I was really hoping this was going to be a groundhog or a Caddyshack question.
We're going to be canceled for this, Jack.
Well, you could take a guess on a candy bar. I will say it's a famous candy bar. So what kind of candy bar does Chunk give Sloth in 1985's The Goonies?
Do you want to say like $100,000 or something?
I was gonna
like a treasure-based one.
Final answer.
Snickers. I don't know.
Incorrect. Matt, I mean, this is a layup for you. You're a big Goonies fan.
Big Goonies fan to the point where I wrote a treatment for Goonies 2.
Oh, wow.
Just for fun. Just for fun. One day I'll share it with you, Jack. Maybe it'll be your next feature. This was the Baby Ruth.
Oh.
He's like, yeah, Sloth is like Baby Ruth,
Yes.
with his crazy voice.
Yes. It is 2-1, Matt. Question 4 is over to him. Matt, name the actor who played Willy Wonka in Tim Burton's remake of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Johnny Depp.
Yep. All right, 3-1. Back over to Jack and Ellie. Speaking of Johnny Depp, he made a movie with Juliette Binoche in 2000 in which Juliette Binoche opens a candy shop in a small French town. Name the film.
Chocolat.
That is correct.
Yeah. Nice. I wouldn't have gotten that one.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Wow, that's a great one. It is 3-2. Question 6 over to Matt K. Matt, name the 2005 movie that starred Elliot Page, credited then as Ellen Page, and Patrick Wilson, and was about a young teenage girl getting revenge on an older man.
Read it again one more time.
2005, Ellen Page, Patrick Wilson, and it was about a teenage girl getting revenge on an older man.
Oh man. Okay, so candy's got to be something about candy in the title.
I think Ellie's got a really good poker face. Looks like she may know it.
Yeah, I got a feeling. I don't know. Sweetness. I'm just guessing.
Ooh. That is incorrect. You guys can tie it up. What was the name of that Ellen Page, Patrick Wilson film?
Hard Candy.
That is correct. 3-3. What a ball game we got here. 2 questions left. Question 7 is over to Ellie and Jack. Name the actor who starred in The Great Outdoors, Uncle Buck, and Canadian Bacon.
That's for us?
Yes.
John
That's
Candy.
John Candy.
John Candy, yes. 4-3. They take the lead, Matt. You need this question to tie it up. Or
no pressure.
Yes, or Ellie and Jack win. Here we go. Last question, Matt. Name the 2018 film that sees Jennifer Garner wake up from a coma and seek revenge for an attack that killed her husband.
Man, why is it like all right, Rescue Me, Ryan.
Wow, Rescue Me, Ryan on question number 8. This candy starts with a P.
Peppermint Patty.
So close, Matt K. So close, but we're not giving it to you. Ellie, what was the name of that movie?
It's just Peppermint.
That is correct.
I didn't see
just
it.
Peppermint.
I did. I love Jennifer Garner.
Wow. Well, the tiebreaker, you guys have won the game 5-3, but the tiebreaker was a Jennifer Garner question. So this would have been it if it came down to a tie. Ellie, the tiebreaker was this: Jennifer Garner's best performance, Juno or 13 going on 30?
I mean, Juno, I think.
That's incorrect. It's 13 going on 30. Unfortunately.
The real answer is Alias, if you want it.
The real jawbreaker was this: age of Jennifer Garner, closest to. Matt, you got to guess on how old Jennifer Garner is.
Yeah, and Ellie, actually, it was Daredevil, but joking.
It was Love, Simon.
I think she's mid-40s, so I'll go 44.
Lock him in at 44. Jack, Ellie, what do you got for Jennifer Garner?
Oh man. I'm going to do this Price is Right style and just go with 47.
She's 49. We give that one to Jack.
Yeah. Nicely done.
Yeah. But they win this one. Can I get a virtual handshake?
Yeah.
Jack,
Here we go.
Ellie,
Virtual fist bump.
Yeah,
You guys.
wonderful. Well done, guys.
Yes,
This has been a blast. I tell you, first and foremost, we got to thank our guests, the director and actress from Big House, Ellie. Jack, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much.
This was a ton of fun, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, Jawheads, definitely get out there and rent this film. Again, help support, local filmmakers and independent films. So please check out Big House anywhere you rent movies. Matt, we also got to thank our sponsors.
Yep. Thanks to Overcast and to the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get great sponsors like them.
And this podcast wouldn't be possible without our producer, our editor, Filmy and Phil.
Oh, thank you guys. I wouldn't be anywhere else. And as a cool aside, we are now available on the Facebook podcast player. So you don't even have to switch apps if you're like scrolling through Facebook anyways. You don't have to open Spotify. You don't have to open Stitcher now. We're on Facebook.
Yeah. And let's be honest, listening to this podcast is probably better than 90% of the stuff you do on Facebook. So just do it.
If you want to support this podcast, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, even if that's Facebook.
Yeah, and while you're at it, click subscribe or like. One extra button from you helps us out tremendously.
Until next week, I'm Ryan the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt Kay.
And keep on jawing about the movies.